Yo, it's X, it's What's Out Media 2023. This is our first rowing cast of the year. And today I got my man, Justin Buckley. He just graduated from Yale just last year, and he was a lightweight rower. And right now, Justin, how are you doing today, man?
Doing great, Xavier. It's great to be on. Thanks for having me on.
Without a doubt. So let's just talk about what you're doing right now. Like right now, where are you in
So
Florida?
I'm down in Florida in Fort Lauderdale. Um, I run a rowing recruiting consulting firm called Row Recruit. So the idea behind that is, there's not a whole lot of information out there for high school athletes about, what to focus on, how to get recruited to college. Even though, I meet so many people and they all have a real passion for the sport in high school. But then it's can be sometimes difficult to know just how to leverage that into rowing in college at a great school. Um, both leveraging that to get into a great school and then also setting yourself up in the best position possible to make the most of your time in college when you're rowing. So that's what I do with Row Recruit. And I started last fall. I started this business last fall, and it's received a huge amount of support and following, and I really just it's a passion project of mine to give back to the rowing community.
And honestly, I think it's really well needed, Justin. I know me growing up when I was trying to get recruited, I would just DM rowers that went to colleges and be like, "Hey, man, can you help me out with this?" They don't even know me, right? I'm just some random kid from Ohio, right? So I'm just like, "Hey, like, how'd you get here? How'd you get here? Tell me your steps for this. Tell me your steps for this." So to make it just kind of streamline and offer that service, especially for rowers will go to any extent, right, to get to their goals. I think this is an amazing service that you've come up with. Let's talk about it. So you're originally from Seattle, correct?
Yeah, so I rowed 4 years in high school in Seattle, or a suburb of Seattle called Redmond, for a Sammamish Rowing Association. Then I went on to row 4 years at Yale on the lightweight crew team, um, and had so much fun. I just I recommend it for anybody who is serious about it in high school. Chances are that it's going to be a good fit for you in college as well.
So tell me, Justin, a little bit about your recruiting process. How did you get recruited to Yale, or what were the schools that you were looking for? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, so I really decided to start taking it seriously after my sophomore year. I was before then I was juggling a lot of different extracurriculars, not fully focused on rowing. And after sophomore year, I stopped playing soccer. I stopped wasting my time in a lot of extracurriculars that I didn't see myself doing long term, and really started to hone my focus on rowing. Mid junior year, I reached out to a lot of colleges. The process really kicks off your spring of junior year, and then by the summer after your junior year, you'll uh, be kind of aggressively speaking with coaches in colleges, and that the process really gets kind of rolling. And then in the fall of your senior year, that's where you usually go on official visits and you finally get your offer letter. Usually before winter of your senior year.
Very nice, very nice. So, Justin, I mean, you're going from Seattle all the way out to Connecticut. What made you choose Yale?
Uh, well, between all of the schools that I was speaking with, I just got a excellent vibe from everybody at Yale that I spoke to, and also the coaches. Uh, the It was really important to me to row at a college where I felt like the coaches were going to be straight up with me. And through my recruiting process, that wasn't necessarily always the case. I uh, I was talking to a lot of coaches who seemed like they were not going to be 100% honest with me, whether they could support me or not. Um, and the Yale coaches made it very clear to me from the get go. Look, either we'll tell you you're we can't support you, or we'll tell you that you're in. We have a great relationship with admissions, and everybody we want in gets in. And we're not going to make you think one thing and then leave you to
Flip
the
it on you.
dogs, which happens to a lot of athletes, unfortunately. So that's another very important thing when you're going through the recruiting process. is either working with someone or just having the knowledge that of how coaches operate, because just like you're casting a very wide net to colleges to try to get recruited, because you know that any one may not work, uh, especially when you're shooting for the stars with Ivy League programs and the like, or really any college. It's not a certainty that you'll get in. Coaches are doing the same thing with their athletes.
Right.
So they're they might have 30 athletes that they're talking to in July, and then they're going to whittle that down to the 7 or 8 recruits that they can actually get in, or maybe if it's a larger team, 10, 12 recruits that they can actually get in by December or November. So it's you have to be aware of that, and you can never get one-itis for a single school until you're absolutely sure that that's number one where you want to go, and that's also the school that wants you.
Right. So were there any other schools besides Yale that maybe had your attention at all?
Yeah, I took officials at Yale, Princeton, and Dartmouth, and I was speaking to basically every school in the lightweight league, um, including MIT, which is now D3, but at the time was D1. And I, personally, I didn't want to live in a city, so or I didn't want to live like straight in the middle of New York, so that kind of ruled out Columbia, to some extent Penn, even though I had nothing against those programs. And then out between Yale, Princeton, and Dartmouth, as I said, the decision was really based off of the coaches,
Yep.
how my officials went. I really liked the people at Yale, and I like them still to this day. And uh, yeah, nothing against Princeton or Dartmouth. It's just Yale was the right spot for me.
What advice would you give to an athlete that gets an official visit? What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Don't mess it up. There's much more that can go wrong on an official visit that can go right. Um, Usually, I mean, it's possible to get an offer letter on your official visit, but usually it's not going to happen on your official visit. But what can happen on your official visit is uh, poorly ingratiating yourselves to the people on the team and the coaches by being weird, being asocial. The rowers are evaluating you just like you're evaluating the team, and if you mess something up, if you're weird with the team, it's going to get back to the coach, and that's going to reflect very poorly on you as a potential recruit. And that happens. I mean, like, I know at Yale we've turned athletes away because of how they made the team feel when they were on their official visit, and they didn't seem like they'd fit in. And like, I compare it to, you're at the 2 yard line about to score a touchdown, and then you just, you know, you poop the bed at the last moment.
Yeah,
So
you fumble the ball there, yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I'd say that I got a great example of this in Jacksonville. I used to love. They always made me the guy that who took in the visits, and I would show them around campus, and take them to dinner, or do these certain things on visits. And there was this one kid really sought after. Like, he had a good score, he had a good erg score, good grades. He was a well-rounded student athlete, but he started bragging, and this is in the car with one of our coaches too, one of our assistant coaches. He starts bragging about how many speeding tickets he got away with, and how in just a flash he could get out of any ticket. And it's like, why are you mentioning this why are you mentioning this with the coach here, or one of the coaches here, and one of the athletes? So once he left, we had a meeting with the head coach, and we tell him, like, yeah, coach, like, I don't know, this kid is definitely not a fit. And he's like, and he was surprised. He's like, what do you mean? Like, how is he not a fit? Like, he had an amazing, conversation with him, and he was really polite, right? But there's certain things, man. There's social is definitely one of them, but just know how to act. Be professional. This is a professional, setting. So come correct, really. I guess is the best.
Exactly. It's like a job interview. you wouldn't be bragging about that to a potential boss. Why would you do that to a potential coach?
Exactly, exactly. Let's talk about your 4 years in Yale, man. What did you enjoy about being on the team? How did you guys perform? Yeah, run through it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the team culture at Yale is second to none. I really feel like that's what makes Yale so special, and that's on both the lightweight and the heavyweight men's side and the women's side. Um, it's what makes such a fearsome program. Everybody, every school gets good recruits. In fact, there have been amazing recruits that go to other schools and don't do quite as well. Versus Yale seems to get some recruits that you would think are they come in quote unquote slow, and what do you know? They're 4-year 1V members and they're winning sprints. Um, the 2 years I had the privilege of going to Eastern Sprints were 2019 and 2022. Both of those years we won the Job Cup, which is the team points trophy, and in 2022 we won the 1V. Um, the I can't speak highly enough of my teammates, and really they say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around. A sports team is that on, to a whole new level, because you're around not only 5 people that you're spending a lot of time around, but 40 people who are like-minded killers who have the same hobby and the same passion as you, and it's just steel forges steel, um, to the max.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. So, any notable things for you? Anything that just sparks a memory right now, like a race or I don't know, an event with the teammates or anything like that? Anything spark your memory right now?
Yeah. HYP are uh my senior year. So 2022, we swept HYP, and that was one of the best moments of uh all 4 years at Yale for me, because just watching the way that the Lake Carnegie course is set up, Princeton, you race. Here's the boathouse, and there's a big, there's you're on Lake Carnegie, and the finish line is at the other end of the lake. So you actually race this way, and after you race, you're paddling back to the boathouse, and you're seeing all the other races go down, and so um, first it's the 4V, then the 3V, then the 2V, then the 1V, and just like like I won my race in the 2V, and then I saw the one, like I knew the 3V1 and I knew the 4V1, and watching the 1V go down, and I saw them at the 1K mark, and they had like a good bit of distance on the second place crew on Princeton, and I just thought to myself, "Holy cow, we actually did it!" And that's like the biggest rivalry for us is the HYP. So that was a pretty special moment, and when we got to the dock, we were all so hyped. It's just there's no feeling quite like a team victory.
A
Um,
clean sweep, yeah.
yeah, because you there's something about like when everybody does like well, you don't have to feel sorry for anybody else that like,
Right.
oh, my boat won but yours didn't.
Yeah.
It was like yeah,
There, I hate that. I hate when like if your boat does well, then you're like, dang, like I gotta keep the morale up. Hey, hey, it's okay, man. That's all. But if you're all winning, you're like, yeah, let's go, let's go.
yeah, yeah. um and then just I mean, I've always been one for winter training. I know not a lot of people are, but I really relished it. I liked seeing my score get faster and faster and faster. Um and the I felt like that's um where the bonds of like you really forge those close bonds with your teammates, because it sucks for everybody. Um but you're like, for a solid 2 months, you're doing these hard ergs every day, every other day, and the guy right next to you is suffering just as much. And there's in the middle of winter, there's almost no end in sight. Like you it can break a lot of people, but I think one of the great things about the Yale culture is that it's um people seem to embrace that and really get faster over that period. And then come springtime, it serves us really well.
I gotta put out a side note to the Floridians and the Texans. They know nothing about what winter training is like. It's that's where speed is made. That's where you're like, I got buddies for life back in Ohio because we decided that every morning we were in the erg room at 6 in the morning. We're grinding for it. We're going for it. Like there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. What
Absolutely.
what would you say that what would you say is the biggest question that athletes right now would ask you in terms of, getting recruited? Is it a 2K? Is it the academic? What is what's the most frequently asked question?
Um, most, I mean, I do AMAs on my Instagram page all the time, and so I see the most the questions that get asked the most, and it's usually like, is this good enough? Is this good enough? Um, and it'll like I'll get questions from the other day I got a question from an eighth grader saying, is this good enough from from like is this a recruitable, am I on track to be recruited as an eighth grader? I'm like, dude, I wasn't even rowing as an eighth grader.
Yeah.
And so my message to everybody who asked me like is this good enough to get recruited? And like how does this compare to other people? Remember that like in the end you're comparing yourself to other people, but like up until the point where you're going on official visits and you're really trying to vie for coach attention, uh, you should just learn to enjoy the process, because you you can't you can't remain um, externally motivated for too long. Like if you're in eighth grade, like thinking for the next 3 years, okay, this is my ticket to college. I have to do this. I have to do this. Like that's you know for most people that's going to wear off eventually.
It's gonna burn out, yeah. And
And
especially if you make it to college, then college. When that's what I would talk to you in a second. But college is another battle between just high school, right? High school is like, you're still grinding with yourself, but your main goal should be getting better yourself, right? Like whatever that means, right? So I understand.
absolutely. And I've never met like an elite rower who didn't actually like rowing itself. Like you can only trick yourself for so long before your body's like F this. This is no fun. Like why am I doing this? Because those doubts will invariably creep in. Um, especially if you're really pushing yourself to the high level that you need to get recruited. So you need to protect against that by actually uh, enjoying what you're doing and cultivating that passion for it. Because like you think the people who are at the top level of the sport uh, don't love what they're doing. The reason that they can get up at 6 a.m. like you said, and be in the erg room with their boys is number one because they love the feeling of self improvement, and number two, they see you were talking about that you're in the erg room with your friends at 6 a.m. Prepping for getting faster in Ohio in high school. You like you see your friend doing that, and that's going to like you're not going to be the odd man out who's like, oh, I can't make it today. I'm no steady state for me today. I'm too tired. I'm going to sleep in. Like it helps having those friends who are really like who are cut from the same cloth as you and are who are going to hold you accountable. And that's really what you get in college is people who treat rowing like it's their job and not like it's a social club.
Exactly. And I think that was one of my biggest things is in high school. A lot of kids did do it just to boost their resume, right? They did it for the social aspect. Going into college was like, yes, this is what I was looking for. Like I was looking for, I already had a group of guys in Ohio, right? Like 4 or 5 guys, not enough to make an eight, really. I'm from a really small program. So we mainly rode in fours, right? So that was where we could have that. But with the team going into college, it was just a way bigger thing. And it was just, I just loved it. I loved it. What
Completely.
would you say to so what would you say on the academic side? I know a lot of times well, I think coaches do touch on it with their athletes, but for the most part, I think athletes just think, oh, it's my 2K, it's my 6K, it's my 5K, it's this. But let's talk about the academic side.
Absolutely. So uh, the way I see it, so I tell this to my athletes is, okay, a fast ERG score gets you in the door. Great academics gets you a seat at the table. And then, having something above and beyond that, say great race results, uh, you know, a really good, like, charismatic connection with the rowers or the coaches, that's going to get you the signing pen. But the second piece, academics there, the coach does care most about your ERG score and your race results, but he's also got to be he's accountable to admissions, and admissions has standards at any school that they need to the criteria that they have to have for all of their athletes. And so the coach will only be able to recruit you if he's able to get you past the goalie, which is admissions. If he gets tied up trying to convince admissions that your 1120 SAT is good enough for an Ivy League school, it's a non-starter for admissions. And no matter how bad the coach wants you, that's where the limits of the coach's power are. The coach might not care so much that, I mean, he's just going to be happy that you're on the team if you're a great rower and you have a great ERG score, but he's not omnipotent, or he or she is not omnipotent when it comes to admissions. All they can do is they they get to select for the ERG score and the race result, and then admissions selects for the academics. So it's by no means like you have to focus on your ERG score, but without academics to match, you're never going to get into a great school because admissions doesn't care how great your ERG score is.
That's facts. That's facts. Here's another one. So I know on the women's side they have a lot more programs. What advice and do you have any I guess clients that are on the women's side of the spectrum? How do you tell, like, there's so many different schools, how do you group them? Do you group them Ivy? Do you group them by their league, right? Like, so Big Ten, or you know what I'm saying? Just like, do you group it that way, or do you how would you help them focus in on a list of schools on the lady side?
Absolutely. So depends on, first of all, if they're looking at lightweight or heavyweight. Um, like you said, with women's rowing in college, not only are there a lot more programs, there are also a lot more scholarships. So are they looking for a scholarship, or are they just looking for a place to row in college? Because to get a scholarship, you have to stand out among your peers.
Right.
To row at, say, a D3 school, you might, like, and not get a scholarship, you might be able to get away with just average. But to get a scholarship, you're going to need something in your rowing resume that really goes above and beyond. So it's all down to, to every rower has a different like career trajectory in college. But I do have some clients who are working to get recruited to both D1, D3, lightweight, heavyweight programs, or open weight, I guess they're called. And it comes down to the rower individually, and usually they know what their options are based on their ERG score, based on their weight, based on their height. That's kind of a non-answer, but it really does come down to people personally.
I got it. So you also consult athletes that are already in college, or no?
I'll talk to them. I'll give them advice. I don't coach them. My programs are primarily oriented towards high schoolers who want to get recruited to college, and they want to leverage every vector that they can to make that as streamlined and as effective of a process as it can be.
So what advice do you give to high school athletes in getting into college and kind of retaining? Because that's an issue for some teams, is retainment of athletes. How would you tell them, like, what advice would you give them, I guess?
So once they get to college, the I feel like the people who don't continue rowing in college were never really about it in the first place. And if you really love the if you really love rowing and you get yourself to a good program, um, that's that's a recipe for success in rowing all 4 years. A lot of times, from my experience and what I hear from other rowers is the people who don't want to row all 4 years. Usually, there's a problem with the team culture. Um, it's either maybe they're too competitive of a rower and they went to a D3 program that's at the bottom of the D3 rankings, and like it's basically a drinking club with a rowing interest,
Right.
and they're like, well, this isn't what I signed up for. um Knowing as much as you can about the school that you're getting yourself into, that's going to be the most important thing for making sure it's a good fit, because you don't want to go into this half cocked and not know uh what the archetype of person is who rows there.
Right. I have a few examples, and it's more on the culture of the athlete or what the athlete was expecting. That you know, I'm not going to mention any names, but this athlete killed it on his recruiting trip. I was like I was his sponsor, quote unquote, and was an amazing kid. I mean, amazing. Had amazing race performances. Got gold at Canadian Henley. Did all this, like really knocked it out of the park. But when he actually ended up joining the team, and maybe it was because he wasn't from, like, he didn't go to a formal school. I think he was homeschooled, and he was a sculler. So he was strictly like small boats. When he got into the team culture, it just didn't fit. And we tried as long as possible to keep him on, but he ended up getting let go. And I mean, he still stayed with the sport, like he still erged. But besides that, I mean, I've seen there's cases like that, right? Where they thought it was going to be a good fit. We thought it would be like on the money. We had actually an athlete from Lithuania who he just didn't buy in. So what advice would you talk about in buying in culture, even in high school? Because there's some kids that love the sport, but they're not bought in on their program. What advice would you give to them?
Well, rowing in college is a commitment. You don't have to row all 4 years, but I mean, everybody's going to do what's best for them, and but a lot of people don't know what is best for them in terms of if they like they're signing up for a program that, like in that guy who won Canadian Henley, right?
Yeah.
He obviously a good rower, obviously like there were reasons why he was recruited, because he would be a good fit for the team. And some people just get to college and they're unprepared for it's a unfamiliar environment. They don't know how really to navigate it, and sometimes taking a step back and thinking about what they actually want out of the school, can be a positive, even if they don't end up rowing, even if they don't end up continuously rowing for 4 years. So sometimes it is a good decision not to row. But my goal is that every athlete who would like to row and
Rose
does
has the
that have that
opportunity.
passion in high school is able to keep rowing if they
Right.
want to.
What advice do you give to them on club? What would you say for club?
So club is uh, more going to be very similar to club is very similar to high school rowing in that it's going to be 2 or 3 days a week, mostly, kind of for those people who want more of a life outside of rowing. And D3 can offer that as well. Uh, Generally, with club rowing, people don't go to the college because of the rowing team. They're you know, I say Duke has a men's club rowing team. Duke is a great university. People go to Duke because it's Duke,
Duke. Right.
um, not because of the rowing team. But then once they're there, then they want to keep rowing. So you're going to get a lot of people um, who are rowing is kind of a secondary interest for them. And if that's you, then you're going to fit in great there. But if you, like you said, if you won Canadian Henley and you're expecting top tier program, and then you go and row club, well, your expectations aren't lined up with reality.
Right. Totally agree. Totally agree. Let's talk about some prep work. What advice would you give for 2K prep? What advice would you give for, I guess, just being on the erg in general, getting comfortable in the erg? I would say, just stay on the erg almost, right? But what advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my programs are focused on uh, giving rowers the biggest bang for their time in terms of erging, because high school rowers are extremely busy. It's wake up at 7, get back at from rowing practice at 7:30, do 2 hours of homework, and go to bed and do it all again the next day. What works for a lot of them is just these very short 2K prep workouts, your 8x500s, your 4x750s, 4x1K, that kind of thing, versus doing 90 minutes of steady state. While steady state is very important for it's a great vector to leverage in terms of getting yourself more fit. It also takes up a ton of time. So
Right.
I encourage my athletes to first focus on doing the work at 2K pace and faster. And then if they have extra time, then add in the steady state. And this has two benefits. Number one, like I mentioned, from a time aspect and a time perspective, it's more efficient. Number two, most high school rowers are a little bit scared of their 2K pace. And what I mean by that is they don't get to practice it much. So if your 2K pace is 145 and most of your work is being done at 205 and 2 minutes, and when it comes time for 2K day, it's unfamiliar territory for you. But if you're doing like short sprint workouts all the time at 138, 145 almost feels like a breeze.
Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah. I feel that. I feel that. I think that I totally agree with you, and I can see it with my athletes, especially the younger athletes, the whole 7 minute mark for those guys, and it's usually like for me, I coach eighth grade through 10th grade really, and I mean I'm assistant for the varsity as well, but these eighth graders through 10th graders are also, oh, I gotta break 7, and you know, I tell them, and I see a lot of their workouts, and a lot of times they're like going 143. They're going on these predictors, but then when they hit their erg, they kind of crap the bed, and it is because they're scared of the split. Uh, so that, I mean that was fantastic advice there, man. I wouldn't expect any different. What about health? What about like your diet? How can athletes maximize their potential through diet?
Absolutely. And I'm going to rattle off a few nutrition tips here that have really worked for me and that anybody can implement. Number one, it's important to be getting as many of your calories when you're young from whole foods as possible. Ditch the Belvita crackers, the Oreos. Start meal prepping your food in batches. So with all my athletes, I go through meal prep. I show them how to meal prep, and they can cook 6 meals at a time in 45 minutes. And that's roughly the time it takes to slap a sandwich together, per meal.
Yeah.
Between getting the cutting board out and washing it and blah, blah, blah. They just make 6 meals and then they're good for 2 or 3 days. And they always have like those staple, very nutritious meals ready for them, that white rice, ground beef type thing before workouts. I'm a big fan of what I call the big three. So salt, carbs, and caffeine, and obviously hydration too. But everybody knows to drink water.
Right.
Kind of an esoteric tip that I give a lot of my athletes for 2Ks and before big pieces is take a half teaspoon of salt, just table salt, and just stick it in your mouth and wash it down with water. That's going to have as many electrolytes as 3.5 20-ounce bottles of Gatorade.
Wow.
And it doesn't come with all the sugar, and you don't have to pound it, and you don't feel like all bloated after. That's going to give you an acute performance enhancing effect. And then also on test days, I just encourage my athletes to have about 100 milligrams more of caffeine than they're used to right before the piece. You're not going crazy, not to the point where you're going to get jitters, but caffeine also does help with it's shown to have a positive effect on athletic performance, and I think most people know about that. The great thing about salt, so your if you drink too much water, you'll actually deplete your salt, and if you just have too much salt, uh, you'll deplete your water.
Drain yourself.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
by super compensating your salt and your hydration, you're actually like overhydrating your muscles, and uh, that will give you for a very short period of time, you'll experience both the performance enhancing effects of electrolytes and super hydration. So um,
Man,
back to your
Justin, I
original
need
point about nutrition as well, I would say meal prep, whole foods, and then pre-workout and intra-workout nutrition. So simple carbs, salt, and caffeine.
Justin, man, if I knew that salt trick when I was in high school and I was hot seating and right before this semifinal to get into a final for our region, right? I caught the craziest cramp, man. I mean, I still remember it to this day. Like I'm grabbing on my calf right now. It was horrible. And I had to we got out of the race. We finished the race and they had to lift me. They had to carry me up a hill because I couldn't walk. Because then the other one started cramping. So if I knew that when I was my younger man, I would be a monster. You know what I'm saying? So
Same. I wish I knew it earlier too. It's a only a recent addition to my athletic regimen. So
really cool, really cool. Let's talk a little bit about lightweight rowing. What you think the future of lightweight rowing is? You know, they don't have a lot more, they don't have a lot of competitions. Really, the colleges really holding it down. Um, I know lightweights, they have a lot of pride in rowing lightweight. Let's talk about that. Show some love to the lightweights.
yeah, I don't think lightweight rowing is going anywhere in college anytime soon. Um, Dartmouth Athletics tried to shut their program down, and the donors, as far as I know, uh, reinvigorated it. I think um, the number one thing keeping lightweight rowing alive is its people, because generally, like lightweight rowers they also go on to have great careers and they donate back to their lightweight rowing team. And
Right.
as long as the money's coming in, it's going to be it's still going to exist, because um, athletic departments would only shut it down if uh, like they were requiring too much funding. And the more alumni funding these programs get, the less they have to rely on their actual athletics department for stuff like new boats and coaches' salaries and whatnot. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I think I think it's a really special league because it is so volatile, both on the men's and women's side. Everybody's the same weight, so the standings shift season to season,
Right.
and that makes it a really exciting league to watch and a even cooler league to participate in, because you know when that when you win, it wasn't because you were bigger or because you were like you were uh, you were born God's gift to rowing. It's because you actually put that work in, and your 155-pound average boat beat the other 155-pound average boat.
Yeah, an
Um,
even playing field, and you just go for it. Go for it. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I guess this goes back to the retention thing, and I'm like kind of like slapping myself. I didn't think of this, but what advice would you give to an athlete that says, "Hey, I was the top guy in my boat. I was 5 seed. I was 6 seed. I was stroke. I was that guy in high school. Now I get to college and I'm in the 4V. It's a mentality, right? People say, "Oh, I'm in the 4V." No, you're blessed with an opportunity to be on a squad in a boat, right? I'm going on a rant right now, but what advice would you give to someone that says, "Oh, I don't like where I'm at in this boat. I don't." You got to embrace in certain aspects where you're at to grow. So, what advice would you give to them?
well, suck it up, Buttercup. You're in
Yeah.
a bigger pond now, and you're a smaller fish. And the only way to, I mean, that's they say that if you're the smartest man in the room, you need to find a different room. Well, you found a bigger team where you got better people, and now it's your job to become that big fish in the bigger pond. So, I mean, I didn't my career at Yale wasn't a 1V guy from my freshman year. I rode in the 4V, the 3V, the 2V. In some races, I rode in the 1V. So it like everybody has the opportunity to build themselves into the person that they want to be, and anybody who's feeling sorry for themselves that, oh, I came from Oakland Strokes, I came from Marin, and I was big shot youth nationals guy, and now I'm or and now I'm bow seat of the 3V. Well, like I think it's pretty obvious. Like you're in with a bunch of killers now. You were top of your high school rowing club because there was no one good there.
With the
There
little
was no, there
pups,
was
right?
no
You
one who was
ever
going to really push you.
Yeah, you with the little pups, you were like, yeah, of course you were doing all right with the little pups, but now you're in the big league. Do you see that at all? I guess that's part of my question too. Do you see that at all where athletes just kind of have that idea that I gotta be in this, I gotta do this when I go there? It's like get there, number one, like this is what you're helping them to do is get there, number one, but also embrace it. Like you're gonna be where you're gonna be, right? And you gotta keep grinding. And just because you were in a boat, your freshman, your fall semester, your freshman year, you're in this boat, or you're in your spring semester, your sophomore, it doesn't mean that there isn't room to grow, right?
Yeah, and once you get to college and you see the people faster than you, and you realize what they're doing that made them fast, like you have the same opportunity that they do. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you do. So it's utter fallacy that boats, if you're not in the 1V your freshman year, you won't be there your sophomore, junior, senior year. Um, like just the people who, I love saying this, people who achieve more in rowing are generally the people who've worked more. And if uh, you don't have it in yourself to work more, you're not going to get very far. And that's the sad truth. And like if most people realize that and they say I'm going to work hard, but they're not really working hard. They're not going into every practice with an idea of the technical changes that they want to make. They're not really putting in the work in winter. They think they're trying hard, but really they're operating at about 50% capacity. And when someone tells them that, they're like, well, but I am working hard.
But
No, you're
yeah,
not. You're in the 3V because there are 16 people at the very least. There are 16 people that are working harder than you. How are you going to fix that?
right. Totally agree. Hey, uh, thank you, man. I really appreciate it, Justin. Justin, I want to talk to you a little bit about one more thing, man. What are your goals? What for Rowing Recruit? How have your customers, have you helped anybody get recruited yet? Like anything like that, and where can people find you, and how can they reach out?
Yeah, so I'm working with sophomores and juniors right now, uh, navigating the spring of the recruiting process. This is really going to start to ramp up for juniors here this summer. I've got some great clients, athletes on board who are, I know, going to do very big things. You can find me at rowrecruit.com. Really, my message to every high school rower out there is, whether or not you want to work with me or you want to do this on your own, if you want to get recruited to college, you need to focus on these three vectors: erg score, academics, and race results. And if you can nail those three things and put in more effort than everybody around you, uh, you're the sky's the limit. Really, in rowing is a meritocracy. The more that you work, the more you'll get out. And that sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true. More than I think in almost any other sport. Uh, so you can schedule a consultation with me on rowrecruit.com if you're a sophomore or a junior. And thank you very much for having me, X.
Yeah, without a doubt. Hey, Justin, man. I feel like this is going to be a great friendship, man. I want to build with you some more. Definitely have some more podcasts. Do whatever. Honestly, I really do appreciate it, and I think that the youth will really take value in this cast today, man. So it's been Justin, man. It's X, and peace out, everybody.
Keep smiling.